Well, telecommunications right there, and still awaiting. So, if you have seen any difference in your charges, it's not the telcos. That's what they say. They're still waiting for a final approval to their products, proposed products, by the NCC. Now, let's talk about something that's obviously very important to us too. We would not be discussing it if it wasn't important, and that's housing. We've talked about how the real estate has overtaken the oil and gas sector, being the third largest in the country, talking about the GDP, contribution to the GDP. But I guess a lot of people will not be concerned about that until they can have affordable access to housing. And we've been talking about how that can be done. Well, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, they now have the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund, and it's towards having affordable housing in the country. Let's talk about their plans on how they want to achieve this with Mr. Lubi Adekunbi. Mr. Adekunbi is from ARM. He's the head ARM investment managers. Good morning, Mr. Adekunbi. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. So we now have we've heard of Ministry of Finance Incorporated. I was supposed to manage like the investment and business transactions of the ministry of the country.
Yes.
Now they now have a real estate investment fund.
Yes.
Well, I know you're from ARM. We'll get to that, but could you tell us what this is about? This MREIF investment fund.
Okay, so the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund is a transformative initiative by the federal government of Nigeria aimed at addressing the housing deficit issue in the country. The implementation of the fund, is led by the strategic guidance of the Honorable Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wali Edo. And the fund is positioned to address the housing deficits from two perspectives, from the supply end and the demand end. From the demand perspective, it's intended to provide low-cost, long-term mortgages to intending homeowners, and then to provide, on the supply side, to provide offtake guarantees to developers to ensure that they have the right credit enhancements to approach commercial banks in raising construction finance for the development of residential homes.
Okay, so help us to understand that approaching commercial banks, to raise finance. What does that mean, really?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the, if you are familiar with the housing market currently, most developers tend to sell their properties off plan, thereby selling units to people before they go into construction. And what happens in that instance is, because of rising inflation, those developers are unable to meet up with the demand of those who have made those payments because they do not have the sufficient funding. What the offtake guarantee does is it gives comfort to the commercial banks to be able to release funding to the developers without them having to make commitments to home buyers, right? And what that does is they get the adequate funding to complete construction, thereby making the properties ready on time, and they can sell at the market prices without them having to incur undue losses.
Okay, so are we saying that the government is coming to facilitate developers accessing funds through commercial banks for development? Is that
Absolutely, that's correct. Through the offtake guarantee program. So what that does is an agreement will be signed with the MREIF, that's the MOFI, Ministry of Finance Real Estate Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund. And with that agreement, the banks, the developers are able to go to the commercial banks to raise the required funding.
Yeah, but I do know that the essence of this is affordable houses.
Yes.
Does this make it affordable? Because commercial banks will still charge high interest rates.
Yes. I mean, so the primary objective of the fund is to provide low-cost mortgages, which is at 12%, right? Currently, if you approach any commercial banks for mortgages, you are going to get a rate that is closer to 30%. So at 12%, it's significantly lower than half of what you will get from a commercial bank. But on the offtake guarantee end, what it does is developers are able to construct the residential properties within reasonable time, and the compounding effect of interest, if they don't have that guarantee to be able to repay the commercial banks ahead of time, also impact the value of houses in the long run.
So is this fund already working? Is it going to be launched? Is it already available? Can people access it?
Yes, so the fund is a 1 trillion naira program being rolled out in phases. The Series 1 is the federal government's commitment through the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, which is 150 billion, and the commitment from MOFI has been received in that regard. The fund is currently in the process of raising its Series 2 issuance, which is seeking to raise up to 100 billion, subject to the Security and Exchange Commission's approval, and it's expected that the fund will go live in February.
That's next week.
Absolutely.
So who can qualify for this? How do they, reach out? How do they get?
Yes, so the MREIF is available for every Nigerian, and what we've done is we've created platforms for well-meaning Nigerians who want to participate in the fund to either go through the website, which is the
don't worry to be displayed. You just go ahead.
Yes, so there are different channels which are being displayed for those who are willing to participate in the program to make their inquiries and see more information on the fund.
Okay, so I see that's an email. So you just send an email to say you're interested.
So it's a form.
It's
WhatsApp.
A form, I also saw a WhatsApp and then a website. So
yes, so inquiries can be made. So the website provides access to information on the fund, and then there's an inquiry form where those who are interested can express their interest, and as the fund goes live, they would have access to the properties that they can access for the mortgages.
So is there a type of property? You say it's affordable. Is
yes.
it a 2-bed, 3-bed, a duplex?
So I mean, the provided that it falls within the available housing, the mortgage rates, the mortgage facilities that
qualifies for, is that it?
Yes, absolutely. So from the estimates and from the research we've done and inquiries we've received, we see that the properties that will be made available or that people are interested in ranges between 1 to 3 bed, and these properties range between 45 to 60 million thereabouts.
And that's what people can qualify for, because you have to qualify. I think your age has to be taken into consideration.
Yes.
Your monthly or annual earning has to be taken into consideration.
Yes. So the income, part of the requirements for home buyers to qualify include their income, right? They have to be Nigerians. So the fund is for Nigerians in Nigeria, right? And to people in the diaspora, Nigerians in the diaspora can also apply. They also need to have, so for those who also want to use their RSA balance for equity contribution, they need to have a valid RSA account for that, and that the fund provides for them to be able to access their RSA for the mortgages.
So I'm sure for a lot of Nigerians who are watching, I mean, I'm a Nigerian, so I can tell you that when you hear things like this coming from the government, you're like, oh, don't mind them, it's their thing. Absolutely. It's going to be for their people. Yes. Because of issues of bureaucracy and who do you know, which button can you press, and Absolutely. All of that. How can Nigerians be assured that anybody who qualifies can actually go for this?
So as much as the fund is sponsored by the federal government, it's going to be completely private sector driven. Right, and the governance and operational structures. So the funds will be disbursed through commercial banks, right? About the value chain, the private sector is completely involved. Our role
that's where ARM
comes in. Our role as fund manager is to ensure that happens, and we've defined a well-structured governance and operational framework, which has passed through all the different levels of the fund, and is currently being implemented to ensure that the objectives of the fund are met, in meeting the home ownership initiative that the federal government is looking to achieve.
So, Olubi, are you saying I know you now? I cannot cut. I cannot cut some processes and just get into this one.
Absolutely not. You go through the process.
Okay, so what's the duration of the processing? Because mortgages these days they take years to process. Yeah. What's the timeline? What's the time limit that people can expect?
So what we've done is to create a platform that streamlines all the processes from the eligibility assessment for the individuals who want to access the mortgages. We already have a platform that has well over 2,000 housing units that people can apply for. We are also making provisions for the application of the RSA balance on the platform and the eventual application for the mortgages. So it's going to be a streamlined process. So without having to go through different parties or taking forms to different sites, it's going to be an online and seamless process that we estimate will take within 30 days to complete the process.
30 days is about 1 month.
Absolutely.
Nigerians are listening. Somebody can just hop in. I mean, you have your information scrolling, you have your WhatsApp and everything. So if I start this process today, which is the 29th, I should expect that, okay, we have February, maybe by the 1st of March.
30 days, absolutely.
I would know.
Provided that all required information and documentation is accurate.
That's a provider. Okay, that's the information, Nigerians. Yes. That's the website, that's the email. And Olubi here from ARM, it's not channel, says within 30 days, you should be able to know your position if you apply for this, and there's no man, no man.
Absolutely, it's a fair process for all Nigerians.
Okay, I mean, if this is being kept, I'm sure it will be a pleasant one, even though the funding, you know, and the requirement is still a major one, because when you talk about 45 million and all of that, and then I think you're supposed to do equity of 30%.
20%.
Oh, 20%. Now, how many people can really afford that? You know, at the end of the day, but I guess it is what it is. Housing materials, building materials are really expensive. Cost of construction is also there. We're importing most of our materials, which is not a plus for anybody at all, especially in things like this. But anyways, thank you so much, Mr. Olubi Adekunbi, for your time. We'll certainly be following up. I'm going to send a message after this and see how long it takes. All right, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yes.
All right.